The clock on the wall of my bedroom ticked relentlessly each second, echoing like a countdown to an execution. Outside, the rain lashed against the window pane, a violent, rhythmic drumming that matched the frantic beating of my heart. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching a crumpled note in my hand, my knuckles white. "Emma!" My mother's voice screeched from downstairs, shattering the oppressive silence. "Get down here, now!" I flinched. There was a hysterical edge to her voice that I had never heard before. My mother was a woman of ice and iron, always composed, always in control. For her to scream like that meant the world was ending. I smoothed my simple gray cardigan, took a deep breath, and walked out of my room. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from the open door of my sister's bedroom, Bella's room. It was empty. The closet doors were flung open, hangers clattering against each other in the draught, empty of the designer dresses that usually filled them. I hurried down the stairs. The living room looked like a war zone. My father was pacing back and forth, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his face a mask of red fury. My mother was slumped on the sofa, sobbing into a silk handkerchief. "Where is she?" my father roared the moment he saw me. "Where is your sister?" "I don't know," I whispered, shrinking back. "I haven't seen Bella since breakfast." "She's gone," my mother wailed, looking up with tear-streaked mascara. "She ran away with that photographer." She pointed a shaking finger at the coffee table. There, amidst the chaos of broken vases and spilled magazines, lay a note. Similar to the one I had found under my door, but this one was addressed to them. "Dear Mom and Dad, I can't do it. I can't marry Julian. He's a block of ice. I'm going to Paris with Luca. Don't look for me. Love, Bella." My stomach dropped. Tomorrow was the wedding. The wedding that was supposed to save our family's company from bankruptcy. The merger with the Sterling Group. Julian Sterling, the ruthless billionaire CEO, was expecting a bride at noon, and the bride was currently on a plane to France. "We are ruined," my father muttered, sinking into an armchair. The glass in his hand trembled, the ice cubes clinking softly. "Sterling will destroy us. He'll call in the loans. We'll be on the street by Monday." My mother suddenly stopped crying. She sat up straight, her eyes locking onto me. It was a look I knew well. Calculating, cold, predatory. "No," she said slowly. "We're not ruined. Not yet." She stood up and walked towards me. I wanted to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. She circled me, her eyes scanning my face, my hair, my body. "Take off your glasses, Emma," she commanded. I obeyed, my hands shaking. Without them, the room blurred slightly. "Fix your hair," she ordered. She reached out and pulled the pins from my messy bun. My dark hair fell around my shoulders in waves. "Put on some lipstick." "Mom, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Look at her, Richard," my mother said to my father. "Look at her." My father looked up. He squinted at me through the haze of alcohol and despair. "She looks like Emma." "She looks like Bella," my mother corrected. "With a little makeup, with the right dress. They're identical twins, Richard." I gasped. "No, Mom, no, you can't be serious." "We have no choice," my mother snapped, grabbing my shoulders, her nails dug into my skin. "Listen to me, Emma. Bella is gone. If Julian finds out, he will bury us. But if he gets a bride, if the wedding happens, the contract is signed, the money is transferred." "But I'm not Bella," I cried. "I'm a librarian. I don't know how to be a socialite. I don't know how to walk in heels. Julian will know." "He won't know," my father said, standing up. Hope was dawning in his eyes, a desperate, dangerous hope. "He's only met Bella 3 times. They've barely spoken. To him, she's just a trophy, a business acquisition. As long as you look pretty and say, 'I do,' he won't care." "I can't marry a man I don't know," I pleaded. I can't lie to him, it's fraud. It's survival, my mother hissed. Do you want to see your grandmother in a state nursing home? Do you want to see us homeless? You owe us Emma. We raised you. We fed you. Now it's time to pay us back. The mention of Grandma silenced me. She was sick. She needed expensive care. If the money stopped... Fine, I whispered, tears leaking from my eyes. I'll do it. The next 24 hours were a blur of torture. I was scrubbed, waxed, and polished until my skin felt raw. My hair was styled into Bella's signature glamorous waves. I was stuffed into a corset so tight I could barely breathe. My mother coached me relentlessly. Chin up, don't slouch. Bella doesn't walk, she glides. And for God's sake, don't talk about books. Bella hates reading. Just smile, nod, and look expensive. By the time I stood in the bridal suite of the Sterling Hotel, I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. She wore a dress that cost more than my entire life's earnings. Diamonds dripped from her ears. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like Bella, beautiful, confident, hollow. The door opened. My father walked in. He looked nervous, sweating in his tuxedo. "It's time," he said. "Are you ready?" "No," I said. "Good, let's go." The walk down the aisle felt like a march to the gallows. The organ music swelled, filling the cathedral with a majestic, terrifying sound. Hundreds of guests turned to look at me. I saw envy in the women's eyes, lust in the men's. They saw Bella. They saw the prize. And at the end of the aisle stood the winner, Julian Sterling. He was even more intimidating in person than in the magazines. Tall, broad-shouldered, with hair as black as midnight and eyes the color of cold steel. He wore his tuxedo like armor. He didn't smile as I approached. He watched me with a predator's gaze, intense and unreadable. I reached the altar. My father handed my cold hand to Julian. His grip was firm, his skin warm. A jolt of electricity shot up my arm, startling me. I looked up at him, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. "You're late," he murmured, his voice deep and smooth like velvet wrapped around a blade. "Fashionably," I whispered back, trying to imitate Bella's haughty tone. His eyes narrowed slightly. He seemed to be studying my face, searching for something. I held my breath, terrified he would see the fear in my eyes, the fraud in my soul. But the priest began to speak. The vows were said. "Do you, Julian, take Isabella?" "I do." "Do you, Isabella, take Julian?" I hesitated. The name tasted like ash in my mouth. I wasn't Isabella. I was Emma. I was the girl who liked old books and rainy days. I was the girl who was invisible. Julian squeezed my hand, hard, a silent warning. "I do," I choked out. "You may kiss the bride." Julian lifted my veil. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he leaned down. I expected a cold, perfunctory peck, a business transaction sealed with a stamp. Instead, his lips captured mine with a surprising intensity. It was possessive, demanding. He tasted of mint and danger. For a split second, the world fell away. There was no lie, no crowd, no fear, just the heat of his mouth on mine. When he pulled back, I was breathless. My cheeks were flushed. Julian stared at me, a flicker of confusion in his steel-gray eyes. "You're blushing," he noted quietly. "Bella never blushes." My blood ran cold. "It's the heat," I lied quickly. "And the corset." He didn't look convinced, but the crowd was cheering. We turned to face them. Mr. and Mrs. Julian Sterling. The reception was a nightmare of fake smiles and meaningless chatter. I played my part. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I sipped champagne I didn't want. I avoided eye contact with Julian as much as possible. but I could feel his eyes on me, watching, calculating. Finally, it was over. We were in the limousine heading to his penthouse. The silence in the car was suffocating. "You were quiet tonight," Julian said, breaking the tension. "Usually you're the center of attention, dancing on tables, flirting with the waiters." "I was tired," I said, looking out the window at the passing city lights. "Weddings are exhausting." "Or maybe," he said, his voice dropping lower, "you're realizing that the game is over. You caught the billionaire. Now you have to live with him." I turned to look at him. "Is it so bad living with you?" He laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "You tell me, Bella. You're the one who called me a cold-hearted machine last month." I winced. That sounded like Bella. "Maybe I was wrong," I said softly. He looked at me surprised. "Maybe." We arrived at the penthouse. It was magnificent, a glass palace in the sky, but it felt cold, empty. "The master bedroom is down the hall," Julian said, loosening his tie. "Your things have been moved in. I assume you'll want your own room eventually, but for tonight, appearances matter." "Right," I said. "Appearances." I went into the bathroom to change. I scrubbed the heavy makeup off my face. I took down the intricate hairstyle, letting my hair fall loose. I put on the silk nightgown my mother had packed. It was flimsy, revealing. I felt naked. I walked back into the bedroom. Julian was standing by the window looking out at the city. He had taken off his jacket and unbuttoned his shirt. His back was broad-muscled. He turned when he heard me. His eyes swept over me. He stopped at my face. Without the makeup, without the armor of Bella's persona, I felt exposed. "Just Emma." "You look different," he said, walking towards me. "Good different or bad different?" I asked, my voice trembling. He stopped in front of me. He reached out and touched a lock of my hair. "Softer," he murmured. "Less sharp." He leaned in. I smelled his scent, expensive cologne, and the faint musk of his skin. "Bella," he whispered. "Why do I feel like I'm meeting you for the first time?" Panic surged in my chest. He knew. He had to know. "People change," I said, stepping back. "Marriage changes people." "Does it?" He stepped closer, crowding me. "Or are you just playing a new role? The innocent wife? Is this a new game?" "It's not a game," I said, my back hitting the wall. "Prove it," he growled. He kissed me again. This time, it wasn't for show. It was a test. A challenge. His lips were hungry, searching. His hands roamed my body, pulling me against him. I should have pushed him away. I should have stopped this charade. But I didn't. I melted into him. I wrapped my arms around his neck. I kissed him back with a passion I didn't know I possessed. For a moment, I wasn't Emma the librarian. I wasn't Bella the model. I was just a woman burning for a man who wasn't hers. Julian pulled back, breathing heavily. He looked at me with wide, dark eyes. "Who are you?" he whispered. I froze. "I'm your wife." I lied, my heart breaking. He stared at me for a second longer, then stepped away. "Go to sleep," he said roughly. "I'll sleep on the couch." He grabbed a pillow and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sank onto the bed, burying my face in my hands. I had survived the wedding. I had fooled the world, but I had the terrible feeling that the only person I was fooling was myself. And I had already fallen in love with my sister's husband. The morning sun pierced through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, blinding me with its brilliance. I groaned, shielding my eyes, and rolled over in the massive king-sized bed. The silk sheets felt cool and foreign against my skin. For a split second, I forgot where I was. I expected to see my small apartment, my overflowing bookshelves, my cat sleeping at the foot of the bed. Then reality hit me like a bucket of ice water. I was Mrs. Julian Sterling. I was in a billionaire's penthouse, and I was living a lie. I sat up, my heart already pounding. Julian, where was he? I crept out of the bedroom, clutching my robe tight. The penthouse was silent. The modern minimalist decor felt sterile, untouched. I wandered into the kitchen, a gleaming expanse of marble and stainless steel that looked like it had never seen a crumb. And there he was. Julian sat at the kitchen island, drinking black coffee and reading news on a tablet. He was wearing gray sweatpants and a tight white t-shirt that left nothing to the imagination. His hair was slightly messy, softening his sharp features. He looked domestic and devastatingly handsome. "Good morning," he said without looking up. His voice was raspy with sleep. "Morning," I squeaked. I cleared my throat, trying to lower my pitch. "Good morning, darling." He looked up then. His steel-gray eyes narrowed slightly as they took in my appearance. I had tried to style my hair like Bella's, but without a team of stylists, it was just hair. And I was barefoot, not wearing the silk slippers Bella would have worn. "Coffee," he offered, nodding towards the machine. "Please." I walked over, trying to glide like my mother taught me, but I tripped over the edge of the rug. I stumbled, flailing my arms. Julian moved fast. He was out of his seat in a blur, catching me by the waist before I hit the floor. "Careful," he murmured, pulling me upright. I was pressed against his chest. I could feel the heat of his body, the steady thrum of his heartbeat. His hands lingered on my waist, firm and possessive. I'm clumsy in the morning," I stammered, looking up at him. "Bella is a dancer," he said, searching my eyes. "She has perfect balance. She never trips." My breath hitched. "I'm out of practice. Too much champagne last night." He stared at me for a long moment, his gaze intense. "Right. The champagne." He released me and walked back to his coffee. "I have meetings all day. You have the credit card. Go shopping. Buy whatever you need to make this place feel like home, or whatever it is you do." "Shopping," I repeated. Bella loved shopping. It was her Olympic sport. "Sure. Great. I love spending money." "I know," he said dryly. "Don't max out the black card before noon." He grabbed his jacket and left the elevator doors sliding shut with a final ding. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I was safe. For now. But I couldn't just sit here. I had to be Bella. And Bella shopped. I spent the morning wandering through high-end boutiques, feeling like an imposter in my own skin. Sales assistants fawned over me, offering me champagne and calling me Mrs. Sterling. I bought a few dresses I knew Bella would like, short, tight, flashy. But then I saw it. A bookstore. An old, dusty bookstore tucked between a Prada and a Gucci. I couldn't help myself. I went inside. The smell of old paper and ink enveloped me like a hug. I spent an hour browsing the classics, my fingers trailing over the spines of books I loved. I bought a first edition of Pride and Prejudice and hid it at the bottom of my shopping bag beneath a pile of lingerie. When I got back to the penthouse, I decided to cook. I missed cooking. In my real life, I made dinner every night. Bella, on the other hand, couldn't boil water without burning the house down. "But Emma is cooking now," I whispered to myself. "And Emma is hungry." I found the basics in the pantry: flour, eggs, tomatoes, basil. I made fresh pasta from scratch and a simple marinara sauce. The kitchen filled with the aroma of garlic and herbs, transforming the cold space into something warm and inviting. I was humming to myself, stirring the sauce, when the elevator chimed. Julian walked in. He stopped dead in his tracks. He sniffed the air. "What is that smell?" "Dinner," I said, turning around with a smile. "I made pasta." He looked at the pot on the stove, then at the flour on my cheek, then at me. "You cooked?" he asked, his voice full of disbelief. "You." "Why not?" I shrugged, wiping my hands on a towel. "I got bored of ordering out." "Bella." He walked closer, eyeing the food suspiciously. The last time you tried to cook for me, you ordered takeout, put it on fancy plates, and hid the boxes in the trash. I froze. I I took a class, cooking school, in Italy, last summer. You were in Ibiza last summer, he countered, partying on a yacht. It was a very short class, I lied desperately. Just taste it, please. He hesitated, then picked up a fork. He tried a bite of the pasta. His eyes widened. He took another bite, then another. This is incredible, he admitted, looking at me with a mixture of shock and something else admiration. It tastes like my grandmother's cooking. Really? I beamed, a genuine unpracticed smile. I'm glad you like it. He stared at my smile. You look different when you smile like that. Real. I am real, Julian, I said softly. We ate dinner at the kitchen island. For the first time, the silence wasn't suffocating. It was companionable. Julian ate 3 servings. He asked me about my day, and I told him about the shops omitting the bookstore. So, he said, pouring wine, no clubbing tonight, no VIP parties. I think I'll stay in, I said. Read a book, maybe. Read? He raised an eyebrow. Since when do you read? Since boy. Today, I said, grabbing my bag. I pulled out the Pride and Prejudice. I bought this. It looked intellectual. Julian took the book from my hands. He opened it carefully, his long fingers handling the fragile pages with respect. A first edition, he murmured. Austen. This is a serious book, Bella, not a fashion magazine. I know, I said, feeling defensive. I can read, you know. I know you can read, he said, handing it back. I just didn't know you liked to read. You always told me books were for boring people with no social lives. People change, I repeated my mantra. Or maybe, he leaned in, his gaze piercing. I never really knew you at all. The air crackled with tension. He was getting too close. He was seeing the cracks in the mask. I'm going to bed, I said abruptly, grabbing the book. Good night, Julian. I fled to the bedroom, my heart racing. The next few days settled into a strange routine. Julian went to work. I explored the city, mostly bookstores and museums. I cooked dinner. We ate together. We talked. He was funny, dry, sarcastic, but funny. He was intelligent. He listened when I talked about art or history, pretending it was new knowledge I picked up. He wasn't the cold monster Bella described. He was just a man who had built walls around himself. And I was dismantling them brick by brick. One rainy afternoon, I was in the living room reading on the sofa. I had forgotten to turn on the lights, enjoying the gray gloom. Julian came home early. He was soaked. Damn rain, he muttered, shaking off his umbrella. He saw me curled up with my book. He stopped. You're still reading that? He asked. It's a good book, I said. Mr. Darcy is a complicated man. Arrogant, Julian corrected, walking over to the bar. Prideful. Misunderstood, I countered. He protects the people he loves, even if he's bad at showing it. Julian poured a whiskey. He walked over to the sofa and sat down on the other end. He looked at me. Is that what you think? He asked softly. That he's misunderstood? Yes. He puts up a shield because he's afraid of being hurt, because everyone wants something from him, his money, his status. When Julian took a sip of his drink. Sounds familiar? I looked at him. Do you feel like that, Julian? Like everyone wants something? Don't they? He asked bitterly. Your father wanted a merger. Your mother wanted a connection. You wanted, well, I don't know what you wanted. Money, freedom. I stopped. What did I want? I wanted my sister back. I wanted my family safe. But looking at Julian with his guard down and his eyes full of loneliness, I realized I wanted something else too. I wanted to be seen, I whispered. Just me, not the name, not the face, just me. Julian set his glass down. He moved closer on the sofa. I see you, he said. He reached out and took the book from my hands, placing it on the table. Then he took my hands in his. I see you, Bella, and I like what I see. This new version of you. The one who cooks pasta and reads Jane Austen and wears my t-shirts to bed. I looked down. I was wearing his t-shirt. I had stolen it from the laundry. I'm sorry. I blushed. It's comfy. Keep it, he said. It looks better on you. He lifted my chin. His thumb brushed my lower lip. Can I kiss you, he asked. It wasn't a demand. It was a question. A request. Yes, I breathed. He kissed me. It was slow, sweet, tender. It tasted of rain and whiskey and longing. It wasn't the passionate, performative kiss at the altar. It was intimate, real. My hands found their way to his hair. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me into his lap. I buried my face in his neck, inhaling him. This is dangerous, he murmured against my ear. Why? Because, he said, pulling back to look at me. I think I'm falling in love with my wife. And that wasn't part of the contract. My heart soared. He was falling for me, for Emma, not Bella. But then the guilt crashed down. He was falling for a lie. He was falling for a woman who didn't exist. Julian. I started, tears pricking my eyes. I need to tell you something. Shh. He kissed my forehead. Not now. Let's just be, for a moment. He held me. We sat there in the dim light, the rain falling outside, wrapped in a fragile bubble of happiness. But bubbles burst. The elevator chimed. We sprang apart. The doors opened. A woman stepped out. She was wearing a trench coat, sunglasses, and a silk scarf over her hair. She looked like a movie star in disguise. She took off her glasses. It was Bella, my sister. She looked at me. She looked at Julian. She smiled, a sharp, predatory smile. Surprise? She exclaimed, throwing her arms wide. I'm back. Julian stood up, shielding me with his body. Who are you? Bella laughed. She walked closer, her hips swaying. She looked exactly like me. Or rather, I looked exactly like her. Oh, Julian, she cooed. Don't tell me you can't recognize your own wife. She pointed a manicured finger at me. Or should I say, my imposter? The blood drained from my face. Julian looked at her. Then he looked at me. He looked back and forth, his eyes widening in shock and horror as the realization dawned on him. Identical. What is this? He whispered, his voice shaking with rage. Which one of you is Isabella? I am, Bella said, stepping forward. The real Isabella. That, she pointed at me with disdain, is Emma, my boring, pathetic twin sister, the librarian. Julian turned to me. His face was a mask of betrayal. The warmth was gone, the love was gone, replaced by a cold, hard fury that terrified me more than anything. Is it true? He demanded. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Answer me, he roared. Yes, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. I'm Emma. You lied to me, he said, his voice deadly quiet. You married me under a false name. You slept in my bed. You made me believe. He stopped. He looked at the pasta pot on the stove, the book on the table. It was all a lie, he concluded. No, I cried, reaching for him. The feelings were real. Don't touch me. He recoiled as if I were poisonous. Get out! Julian, please. I said get out, he shouted, pointing to the door. Both of you, get out of my house before I call the police and have you arrested for fraud. Bella smirked at me. Well, that went well. Come on, sis, let's go. Wait, Julian said to Bella. You stay. Bella's eyes lit up. See, I knew you'd prefer the original. I want answers, Julian said coldly. And then I'm going to destroy your family. He looked at me one last time. His eyes were dead. Go, he said to me, and never let me see your face again. I turned and ran. I ran to the elevator sobbing. The doors closed, shutting out the sight of the man I loved standing next to the sister who had ruined everything. I was alone, and this time there was no fixing it. The rain had stopped, leaving the city streets slick and shiny under the harsh glare of the streetlights. I sat on a bench in Central Park shivering in my thin silk dress, clutching my purse like a lifeline. I had nowhere to go. My parents would be furious. Bella was back, which meant their plan had failed, but also succeeded in the worst possible way. They had their merger, but they had lost their leverage. And I had lost everything. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. Where are you? Come home immediately. We need to talk. I ignored it. I couldn't face them. Not yet. Instead, I scrolled through the photos on my phone. Photos of the penthouse, of the view, of the pasta I made, and one photo I had taken secretly, Julian sleeping on the sofa, a book resting on his chest. He looked so peaceful, so human. I ruined it, I whispered to the empty park. Meanwhile, back at the penthouse, a different kind of storm was brewing. Julian paced the living room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He hadn't taken a sip. He just stared at the amber liquid, swirling it violently. Bella was sitting on the sofa, my sofa, I thought bitterly, looking entirely too comfortable. She had helped herself to a bottle of wine and was scrolling through her phone, seemingly unbothered by the fact that her husband looked ready to commit murder. So, she said, looking up, are we going to talk about the settlement? Or are you just going to glare at me all night? Settlement! Julian laughed, a dark, dangerous sound. You think you're getting a settlement? You committed fraud, Isabella. You abandoned your contract. You sent your sister to impersonate you. Technically, Bella smirked, she signed the papers. So she's your wife, not me. Julian froze. He turned to look at her. What? Emma signed the marriage license, as Emma Ross. Didn't you check the signature? Julian ran to his desk. He pulled out the marriage certificate. He scanned the bottom line. Emma Ross. It was messy, scrawled in a panic, but it was legible. She used her own name, he whispered. She didn't forge your signature. Exactly, Bella said, pouring more wine. So legally you're married to the librarian, which means I'm free. And rich thanks to the prenup you signed with my father, which guarantees the Ross family a payout regardless of which daughter you marry. Julian stared at the paper. His mind was racing. Emma hadn't tried to trap him into a fake marriage with Bella. She had married him as herself. Why, he asked more to himself than her. Why didn't she sign your name? Because she's an idiot. Bella rolled her eyes. She has a conscience. It's annoying. It's honest, Julian corrected. He looked at Bella. She was beautiful, yes. But her beauty was sharp cold. It lacked the warmth he had seen in Emma's eyes. It lacked the softness. Get out, he said quietly. Excuse me. Get out of my house. I don't want you here. But I'm the real Bella, the one you wanted. I never wanted you, Julian said, realizing the truth as he spoke. I wanted a merger. I wanted a business partner. But what I got, what Emma gave me, was a wife. She lied to you, Bella shrieked, standing up. She played you. She cooked for me, Julian countered. She read to me. She listened to me. Did you ever do any of that, Bella? Did you ever care about anyone but yourself? Bella scoffed. You're pathetic. You're actually falling for the spare, the boring twin? She's not boring, Julian said, his voice hard. She's extraordinary. Now leave, before I throw you out. Bella grabbed her purse. Fine, but don't come crawling back to me when you realize you married a nobody. She stormed out. Julian was alone again. He looked at the marriage certificate. Emma Ross. He traced the name with his finger. He had been angry, furious, betrayed. But now he just felt a hollow ache in his chest. He grabbed his coat. He had to find her. I was still on the bench when a black car pulled up. I didn't look up. I thought it was my parents. Get in. The voice wasn't my father's. It was Julian's. I looked up. He was standing by the open door of the car, looking disheveled and frantic. Julian, I whispered, what are you doing here? I tracked your phone, he said. Get in. You're freezing. I can't. I shook my head. You kicked me out. I was angry, he admitted. I was stupid. Get in the car, Emma. The use of my real name made me shiver. I got in. The car was warm. Julian got in the driver's seat. He didn't start the engine. He turned to me. Why did you sign your own name? He asked. What? On the license. You signed Emma. Why? Because I looked down at my hands. I couldn't lie about that. I couldn't marry you as Bella. It felt wrong. I wanted it to be me, even if it was just on paper. So we're legally married, he said. Me and you? I guess so. Good. I looked at him confused. Good. But you hate me. You said I was a liar. You are a liar, he said, reaching out to take my hand. But you're also the woman who made me pasta. You're the woman who reads Jane Austen. You're the woman who wears my t-shirts. He squeezed my hand. I don't want Bella, he said fiercely. I never did. I realized that the moment she walked in the door. She's cold. She's empty. But you're full of light. But the lies. We can fix the lies, he said. We can start over. Hi, I'm Julian. Tears welled in my eyes. Hi, I'm Emma. Nice to meet you, Emma. He smiled, lifting my hand to his lips. Would you like to come home with me? My wife is missing, and I'd like to introduce you to my kitchen. I laughed through my tears. I'd love that. We drove back to the penthouse. It felt different this time. No secrets, no masks, just us. But the peace didn't last long. The next morning, the headlines screamed scandal at Sterling Enterprises, the twin switch. Bella had gone to the press. She sold the story. My sister stole my life, the article quoted. She kidnapped me and took my place at the altar. It was a lie, of course, but the public ate it up. Reporters camped outside the building. My parents were calling nonstop. The board of directors was demanding a meeting. Julian looked at the newspaper, his jaw tight. She wants a war, he said. She'll get one. What do we do? I asked, terrified. We tell the truth, he said. We hold a press conference. We show them who is real and who is fake. But everyone loves Bella, I whispered. She's the star. I'm just the shadow. Not to me. Julian pulled me into his arms. You are the only star in my sky, Emma, and we're going to make sure the world knows it. We spent the day preparing. Julian called his lawyers. I called my grandmother, who told me to give them hell. At noon, we walked out of the building to face the press. Flashes blinded me. Questions were shouted. Did you kidnap your sister? Are you a fraud? Mr. Sterling, were you tricked? Julian held up a hand. Silence fell. My wife, he said, his voice booming, is not a fraud. She is a hero. He pulled me to his side. Bella Ross abandoned our wedding, he announced. She ran away with a lover. She left her family in ruin. Emma stepped in to save them. She sacrificed her own life, her own identity to protect her parents' and her sister's reputation. The reporters scribbled furiously. "But here is the truth," Julian continued, looking at me. "I knew." The crowd gasped. "I knew from the moment she walked down the aisle," he lied smoothly. "I knew she wasn't Bella. Bella is cold. Bella is selfish. The woman who walked towards me was warm. She was kind. She was terrified, but she was brave." He turned to me, ignoring the cameras. "I married Emma," he said. "Not Bella. I fell in love with Emma. And if Bella thinks she can come back now and claim a place in my life, she is mistaken." He kissed me, right there in front of the world. It was a kiss of defiance, a kiss of ownership. "Mr. Sterling," a reporter shouted, "what about the fraud allegations?" "My wife signed her own name," Julian said, holding up a copy of the license. "There is no fraud, just a love story. A messy, complicated, beautiful love story." We walked back inside, leaving the press in a frenzy. "You lied," I whispered in the elevator. "You didn't know." "I knew something was different," he said, shrugging. "And it makes for a better story. Plus, it protects you." "Thank you," I said, hugging him. "Don't thank me yet," he warned. "Your parents are upstairs. Security let them in." My stomach dropped. We walked into the penthouse. My parents were there. And Bella. "How dare you!" my mother screamed. "You humiliated us. You ruined Bella's career." "I ruined nothing," I said, stepping forward. "Bella ruined herself when she ran away." "You stole my husband," Bella shouted. "You stole my life. I saved your life," I yelled back. "If I hadn't stepped in, Dad would be bankrupt. You'd be on the street." "We had a deal," my father roared at Julian. "A merger." "The merger is off," Julian said coldly. "I don't do business with liars or people who sell their daughters." "You can't do that," my father sputtered. "We have a contract." "Read the fine print," Julian said. "The morality clause. You breached it when you conspired to commit fraud." He walked over to the door and opened it. "Get out," he said. "All of you. And take your toxic drama with you." "Emma," my mother pleaded, changing tactics. "Talk to him. We're your family." I looked at them. The people who had ignored me my whole life. The people who used me as a spare part. "No," I said. "You're Bella's family. I have a new family now." I walked over to Julian and took his hand. "Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Dad. Have a nice life." They left defeated. Bella shot me one last look of hatred, but I didn't care. When the door closed, silence returned to the penthouse. But this time it wasn't empty. It was full of relief. "You okay?" Julian asked, stroking my hair. "I'm free," I said, realizing it was true. "I'm finally free." "Not completely," he smirked. "You're still stuck with me." "I can live with that." I smiled. He picked me up and carried me to the bedroom. "Good," he said, "because I plan on keeping you for a very, very long time." We made love that afternoon with the sun streaming in through the windows. No secrets, no lies, just Emma and Julian. And as I lay in his arms listening to his heartbeat, I knew one thing for sure. Being the spare was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it led me to him. The days following the press conference were a whirlwind. The twin switch scandal dominated the news cycle, but surprisingly, the public sentiment was on our side. People loved a Cinderella story, especially one where the evil stepsisters, or in my case, evil twin and parents, got what they deserved. My parents and Bella were laying low, probably plotting their next move, but for now, the penthouse was a sanctuary. Julian and I were in a bubble of newlywed bliss. We cooked together, we read together, we even went grocery shopping together, which resulted in Julian being swarmed for autographs while I argued with him about the price of organic kale. But bubbles are fragile. One evening, we were getting ready for a charity gala, our first official appearance as a real couple. I was nervous. This wasn't just facing the press, it was facing Julian's world. The old money, the sharks, the people who had expected him to marry Bella. I put on a deep red gown that Julian had chosen. It was elegant but bold. "You look stunning," Julian said, coming up behind me and fastening a diamond necklace around my throat. "Like a queen." "I feel like an imposter," I admitted, smoothing the silk. "You're not." He kissed my shoulder. "You're Mrs. Sterling. Own it." We arrived at the gala. Flashbulbs blinded us. Reporters shouted questions. Julian held my hand firmly, guiding me through the chaos. Inside the ballroom was a sea of familiar faces, people I had seen in magazines, people who had attended my wedding thinking I was someone else. "Just breathe," Julian whispered. "They're just people. Rich, bored people." We mingled. I smiled until my cheeks hurt. Julian was charming, protective, never leaving my side. I was starting to relax, starting to believe I could do this. Then the music stopped. A spotlight hit the stage. A man walked up to the microphone. It was Marcus Sterling, Julian's uncle, the chairman of the board. He was a silver-haired fox with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus boomed, "tonight we celebrate charity, but we also must address the elephant in the room, the recent irregularities surrounding my nephew's marriage." The room went silent. Julian stiffened beside me. "While we appreciate love in all its forms," Marcus continued, his eyes locking onto us, "Sterling Enterprises values integrity above all else, and deception, no matter how romanticized, is a liability." "What is he doing?" I whispered. "He's making a move," Julian hissed. "He's always wanted the CEO spot." "Therefore," Marcus announced, "the board has decided to launch a formal investigation into Julian Sterling's conduct. Until the investigation is complete, he will be placed on administrative leave." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Furthermore," Marcus smiled cruelly, "due to the questionable legality of the marriage contract, which was signed under false pretenses, the assets tied to the merger are frozen, including Julian's personal accounts." Julian surged forward. "You can't do that, Marcus." "It's done, nephew," Marcus shrugged. "It's for the good of the company. Escort them out, please." Security guards approached us, not the friendly ones from the building. These were new faces. "Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Sterling," one said, "please come with us." "Don't touch her," Julian snarled. We were escorted out of the gala like criminals. The shame burned my face. We stood on the sidewalk, the gala continuing inside without us. "He planned this." Julian paced back and forth, loosening his tie. "He waited until we were public to humiliate me, to strip me of my power." "Can he really freeze your accounts?" I asked. "Yes. The bylaws are strict. Any hint of fraud triggers a lockdown." He looked at me, his eyes filled with apology. "Emma, I'm sorry. I have nothing. No money. No company. I can't even call a car." I looked at him. The man who had everything was suddenly left with nothing. "We have my Honda," I said. He blinked. "What?" "My Honda Civic. It's parked 3 blocks away. It's fully gassed up." "You want us to leave in a Honda? Unless you want to walk home in those shoes." I pointed to his patent leather loafers. He laughed. A short, sharp sound. "Okay, lead the way." We walked to my car. It was old, dented, and filled with library books. "This is..." Julian struggled for a word. "Cozy," I supplied, unlocking the door. We drove back to the penthouse. But when we got there, the keycard didn't work. "Access denied," the electronic voice chirped. "He locked us out." Julian slammed his hand against the scanner. "That bastard locked us out of my own home." "It's a company apartment," I realized. "Technically, it belongs to Sterling Enterprises." We're homeless. Julian slid down the wall, sitting on the floor of the lobby. He put his head in his hands. I'm sorry, Emma. I dragged you into this mess, and now I can't even give you a bed to sleep in. I sat down next to him. I put my arm around him. We're not homeless, I said. I have an apartment. He looked up. Your apartment? It's small, I warned. And it smells like cat food because my neighbor feeds strays, but the rent is paid. Let's go, he said, standing up and pulling me with him. Take me to the cat food palace. My apartment was indeed small, a studio in Brooklyn with a leaky faucet and a view of a brick wall. Julian looked around. He looked at the single bed, the tiny kitchenette, the towering stacks of books. It's charming, he lied. It's home, I said, kicking off my heels. Welcome to the real world, Julian. He took off his tuxedo jacket and hung it on a chair. He looked out of place, a peacock in a pigeon coop. I'm going to fix this, he vowed. I'm going to get the company back. I'm going to destroy Marcus. Tomorrow, I said, walking over to him. Tonight you're just my husband, and we have a very small bed to share. He smiled, pulling me close. I like small beds. We slept tangled together, the city sounds of Brooklyn filtering through the thin walls. It wasn't the penthouse, but it felt more real. The next morning I woke up to the smell of coffee. Julian was in the kitchenette brewing coffee in my old French press. He was wearing my I Love Books t-shirt, which was comically tight on him. Nice shirt, I giggled. It was the only thing that fit. He grumbled, handing me a mug. We have a problem. What? We need a lawyer, a good one, to fight Marcus. But all the top firms are on retainer with Sterling Enterprises. Conflict of interest. We need someone scrappy, I said. Someone who hates corporate bullies. I grabbed my phone. I know someone. I called my friend Sam, a lawyer who specialized in tenant rights and sticking it to the man. Sam, it's Emma. I need a favor. Can you sue a billionaire for me? An hour later, Sam was in my apartment, sitting on the floor with Julian surrounded by legal pads. This is a mess, Sam said, chewing on a pen. The morality clause is vague, but Marcus is using it as a weapon. We need to prove that he manipulated the stock price, that he is the one committing fraud. I know he did, Julian said, but I can't access the servers. My login is revoked. We need a hacker, I said. Julian and Sam looked at me. What? I shrugged. I'm a librarian. I know how to find things. And I know a guy who owes me a favor for waiving his late fees on a rare sci-fi collection. You know a hacker? Julian looked impressed. His name is Neo. Yes, really. He lives in his mom's basement in Queens. We went to Queens. Neo was exactly as described, pale, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and multiple monitors. You want me to hack Sterling Enterprises? Neo asked, eyes widening. That's like hacking the Death Star. Can you do it? Julian asked. For you, no? For Emma, maybe? She let me keep Dune for 3 extra weeks. Neo got to work. His fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm in, he said after 20 minutes. Wow, your uncle is sloppy. He's been routing funds to a shell company in the Cayman Islands for years. Print it, Julian ordered, and look at this. Neo pointed to an email thread. He's communicating with Richard Ross. My father. My father helped him, I whispered, horrified. It looks like it. Julian read the screen. Your father agreed to the merger knowing Marcus planned to oust me. In exchange, Marcus promised to bail out your father's company. They set us up, I realized. From the beginning, they wanted us to fail. They wanted a scandal so Marcus could take over. We have them, Julian said, his eyes cold. We have everything. We took the evidence to the SEC. We took it to the press. The story broke that evening. Sterling coup exposed uncle and in-law conspired to defraud shareholders. By morning, Marcus was arrested. My father was arrested. Julian's accounts were unfrozen. He was reinstated as CEO. We stood in the lobby of Sterling Tower watching the police lead Marcus away in handcuffs. "You lost, Uncle," Julian said calmly. Marcus glared at him. "You won't keep it. You're weak. You let a woman distract you." "She didn't distract me." Julian put his arm around my waist. "She saved me." We went up to the penthouse. It was ours again. But it felt different. "It's too big," I said, looking around the cavernous living room. "It echoes." "It does," Julian agreed. "And the kitchen is too far from the bedroom." He looked at me. "Let's sell it." "What?" "Let's sell the penthouse. Let's buy a brownstone. Somewhere with a garden. Somewhere with neighbors who aren't corporate sharks." "In Brooklyn?" I asked hopefully. "In Brooklyn," he nodded. "Near your favorite bookstore." I kissed him. "You're perfect." "I'm learning." He smiled. 6 months later. We were settling into our new brownstone in Park Slope. It was messy, chaotic, and full of boxes. I was in the kitchen unpacking plates. The doorbell rang. I opened it. A delivery man stood there with a massive crate. "Delivery for Mrs. Sterling." "What is it?" "Fragile. Handle with care." We opened the crate in the living room. It was a piano. A beautiful baby grand piano. "For you," Julian said, coming up behind me. "You said you always wanted to learn." "I did. You mentioned it once, when we were fake dating. You said you wished you could play something happy." I touched the keys. A soft melodic sound filled the room. "I love you," I whispered. "I know." He kissed my neck. "Now play me something." I sat down. I didn't know how to play. I just tinkled the keys. It sounded terrible, but Julian clapped as if I were Mozart. "Bravo!" he cheered. We laughed. The sound filled the house, chasing away the shadows of the past. We weren't the spare and the monster anymore. We were just Emma and Julian, and our music was just beginning.